Hello and welcome to another episode of That Football Topic. I'm your host, as always, Sam Firmanek, and today we are getting into my slightly late Week 14 recap, as well as me doing the Thursday night predictions for tonight's game, which is the Chargers and the Chiefs. Big AFC West divisional matchup. So with my recap, I'm just going to go through some of the best games from Week 14, give my thoughts, and what I think it implies for the next couple of weeks in the NFL. So starting off with the key divisional matchup in the AFC North, we had the Ravens travel to Cleveland to play the Browns. Lamar Jackson, that was a big story in this one. He left the game early with an ankle injury, which has lingered with him all week this week. But that meant Tyler Huntley had to come in and play. And Tyler Huntley actually came in and played pretty well. He went 27 for 38, 270, one touchdown. He also had 45 rushing yards. A really awesome rushing play. Looked like Lamar on that. And he almost led the Ravens to a comeback over the Browns. Also something I want to point out from that game, they got a good one in Rashad Bateman. I mean, they've really been looking for this guy. Of course, Marquise Brown has had a great season so far, but he's a speed guy. He's not like one of those guys who can go up and get it. Rashad Bateman is proving to be that guy. He had 7 catches, 103 yards. And then on the other side of the ball, I really can't get a read on this Browns team, if it's the Brown team we knew and loved from last year or not. At this point, they're 7-6. They won the game 24-22. But after going up 17-0 early in the second quarter, their offense did nothing. Like, they just completely shut down, turned the ball over a few times. And I think when you look at this Browns team trying to make a playoff push, I think there's the 3 most important things you need to have going into the playoffs is a guy you trust with the ball in his hands, a good defense that can play and travel, and a good run game. We know the Browns have a good run game. I mean, they when healthy, we know what that can be with Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Dearness Johnson's been great. Their defense can play too. I mean, it's led by Myles Garrett. I think without Myles Garrett, they probably lose that game. He had that forced fumble and recovery for a touchdown that put them in the lead. Without that, I think the Ravens end up winning that game. But this defense can play. They got ballers like Denzel Ward, John Johnson, as I mentioned, Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney. They can play. The problem is, I don't trust Baker down the line. I mean, he's not that guy that you could trust with the ball in his hands. Obviously, it didn't really pan out in this game despite them winning. And to make the playoffs, they have a pretty tough remaining schedule, as do a lot of the AFC North teams. I mean, they have to play at home versus the Raiders, and the roster is decimated right now with COVID. They have, I think 18 guys, something like that, on the COVID list, a lot of key players. Then they have to go to Green Bay. Then they have to go to the Steelers, who already beat them early in the season. And then they finish out with the Bengals, who have been pretty streaky. So they have a tough path to the playoffs. I mean, getting this win over the Ravens was huge, don't get me wrong. But I don't trust Baker down the line. Granted, if they can really get this run game going, maybe, but we'll have to see. All right, another big game was the 49ers at the Bengals. This was a thriller. It went to overtime. The Niners ended up winning 26-23. Thanks to a Brandon Ayuk walk-off touchdown thrown by Jimmy Garoppolo. But the star of that game was by far George Kittle. I mean, he was spectacular for the second straight week, posting over 150 yards. I think in this game he had 12 receptions and 2 touchdowns. He went crazy in this game. I mean, he's making it really close for who is the number 1 tight end in the league. I mean, over the last 2 years, it really started to shift towards Kelsey. Kelsey had an outstanding year last year, a record-breaking year. And Kelsey's been great this year, don't get me wrong, but it hasn't been as flashy as before. And Kittle's really come in and stolen the show. Of course, we know he's a better blocker, and now he's starting to show that he's still that elite threat out of the tight end package. I guess he's still an elite receiver, and he's showing it there. And this helps their wild card hope significantly as they firmly sit now at the 6th seed in the NFC playoff race. And then for the Bengals, they're tied with a multitude of teams in the AFC at 7-6. And they've just been pretty inconsistent this year. They've won some big-time games. They've lost some not-so-big-time games. So it's hard to get a read. I mean, I think the one consistency with their inconsistency this year has been their run game. Look, Joe Burrow is the future of that franchise, and he's been great this year. He had some huge throws late in the game versus the 49ers. However, this offense runs through Joe Mixon and his ability to run the football effectively. And they have lost every game this year in which they didn't run the ball. It's as simple as that. With the exception of the Browns game where they really had to get away from the running game because they were getting blown out, Joe Mixon was under 4 yards a carry in every single loss. That's against the Bears, the Packers, the Jets, the Chargers, and the Niners. When they win or when they run the ball, they win the game. It's as simple as that. Joe Mixon needs to be going. I mean, he's top 5 in rushing yards this year, so he definitely has gotten it going. It's just they need to get going more for him to win. If they're not running the ball, it all rests on Joe Burrow's shoulders, which is fine. That's why you drafted him. That's why he's that guy. But you need to take a little pressure off. We've seen with the Bengals this year, running the ball is the key to their success. However, this defense has also been pretty good. I mean, Trey Hendrickson has a sack in like 9 straight games, something crazy like that. And then Larry Ogunjobi has been outstanding pickup. Sam Hubbard has been very nice too. And then they got pieces in the back end. So this is a team that absolutely has the tools to make this playoff push. Got a tough schedule coming up, but it's possible. It's possible. I like the Bengals. I think they're a year early. I think next year is definitely going to be their year. They're going to turn a lot of heads. They'll be able to really build on that O-line after a strong campaign this year, but they definitely still have a chance to make the playoffs this year, sitting at 7-6. All right, now talking about another team that dropped to 7-6. We got the Bills, who went to Tampa Bay, and what a game that was. The Bills rallied late to send the game to overtime, but Tom would eventually have the Bills number once again as he was able to get it to Brashad Perriman for a 58-yard walk-off touchdown. And the Bucs continued their quest for the top seed in the NFC. They now sit at 10-3, pretty much locked up the NFC South at this point. They're third place in the NFC, really looking to get that top seed. Arizona losing definitely helped, so I think it's a 3-way tie there at 10-3. Meanwhile, the Bills, while they lost back-to-back games to the Patriots and now the Bucs, make no mistake, this is still a playoff team. This is still a team that has the tools to turn it around. With the exception of playing the Patriots again in Foxborough, the Bills have a fairly easy schedule to end out the year, as they also play the Panthers, Falcons, and the Jets. So what does concern me, I guess if I have one concern for the Bills, is their inability to run the football. Josh Allen is great at running the football. They've run the ball well with Josh Allen exclusively. I mean, he had 112 yards and a score versus the Bucs. But come playoff time, you need somebody you can rely on, and neither Devin Singletary, Matt Breida, or Moss have really been able to get it going all year for the Bills. They've not proven to be that guy. So come playoff time, and make no mistake, the Bills will be there in the playoffs. They're that talented of the team. Their defense is outstanding. I think Tom Brady was the only 300-yard passer they've allowed all year. The run game does concern me down the line, but they definitely have, as I mentioned with the Browns, they have a quarterback and they have a defense. They just don't have the run game. But make no mistake, they will be in the playoffs. All right, now I think probably one of the games of the week, it was the Rams and the Cardinals on Monday Night Football, a must-win game for the Rams, and they went into the desert, and Matthew Stafford and the Rams receivers put on a show. Matthew Stafford threw for 287, 3 touchdowns, no picks, including a beautiful throw, a 58-yard bomb to Van Jefferson. Cooper Kupp did his thing, absolutely carrying my fantasy team once again. 13 catches, 123 yards, and a touchdown. And Odell Beckham Jr. really got it going. He had by far his best game as a Ram, posting 6 catches or 77 yards and a touchdown. He scored a touchdown in the past 3 games for the Rams. I think Steve Levy put it perfectly. I mean, when the Rams first got OBJ, and everyone was concerned because he didn't do much versus the 49ers. They lost that game. They got away from running the football. That was because they just got a brand new toy. They wanted to play with him, but that shouldn't have been the game plan for that game. They should have run the ball versus the Niners. I digress. This is a signature win after dropping key games to good opponents like the Titans, 49ers, and Packers in recent weeks. And I think even without Darrell Henderson the last 2 weeks, they've been able to run the ball well with the preseason addition of Sony Michel. He's proved pretty good later down the stretch. Cam Akers has hinted at a potential return later in the season. I don't think it'll happen, but hey, you never know. That would be quite the boost for the Rams if they could get Cam Akers back. I don't think it will happen, though. And for the Cardinals, it came down to just not being able to convert in the red zone a couple of times. One of the biggest bright spots, though, for the Cardinals is James Conner. He got slept on this year coming off of Pittsburgh, and now he's proving why he was that number 1 guy in Pittsburgh after a down year there. I mean, a lot of people thought he's just a power back, he's just a bruiser, which he was at the beginning of the season. He's been a versatile weapon out of the backfield. He was making some really good catches, being a PPR monster in fantasy. And then he's getting into the end zone. He has 14 touchdowns, I think, which is second or third in the league. And then back to the Rams. if this wasn't already known, Aaron Donald is a grown man. Like, if you watch that first play, he picked up Max Garcia, walked him back, threw him, and then just shoved Kyler Murray to the ground. It was one of the best plays I think I've seen all year, one of the most underrated plays all year. And he did it all night. He was a consistent force in the run game, and he got 3 sacks. He actually got the game-winning sack right at the end there. I think, look, now the Rams have a chance to take this division if the Cardinals drop another game. I think they both have very tough remaining schedules. The Rams play at home versus Seattle. Then they have a 2-game road stretch where they play the Vikings and Baltimore both on the road. And then they come back home and play the Niners, who have had their number. And the Cardinals, it's still pretty difficult with the exception of playing at Detroit. Then they have to play Indiana. Then they have to go to Dallas to play the Cowboys, and then they finish with Seattle at home. So tough remaining schedules for both teams. The Cardinals will be without their top weapon in DeAndre Hopkins for the rest of the regular season. So this is going to be a fun race to see who wins this West Division. Both teams, I think, are deserving. They both had great seasons. But I think right now I'm going to say the Cardinals have it just because they have that 1-game lead. They have that advantage. So I'm going to give it to the Cardinals. But now let's talk about tonight's game, the Thursday night game, the battle for the West, the other West, the AFC West. It's the Chiefs traveling to Los Angeles to play the Chargers. They're coming off of blowing out the Raiders for the second time this season. It's actually happened twice. They won 48-9, and then the Chargers, are coming off knocking off the Giants 37-21. Both coming in with some confidence. Offense is looking really good. Huge battle for first. Earlier in the season, week 4, it was the Chargers, or week 3, the Chargers won the first matchup in Arrowhead. They won 30-24. Justin Herbert had an outstanding game. Mike Williams went crazy. He had 7 catches, 122 yards, 2 touchdowns. However, I'm going to take the Chiefs in this one. I think I like the Chiefs because of this much improved defense. Look, I'm going to throw out a few stats here just because we like to do that. I like to do that. It's that football topic. What would it be without stats? In the past 5 games, they've allowed 9.6 points per game. That's best in the league in that stretch. That's an outstanding number. In the last 3 games, they've given up only 9 points each, respectively, to the Raiders, Broncos, and Cowboys. So this defense has been on an absolute tear as of late. Getting Chris Jones was so critical for them. It's proven to be down the stretch. Plus, I think they'll be able to run the ball well against a defense in the Chargers that have struggled in that area. So for that reason, I'm going to take the Chiefs in this one. Gonna be a very fun matchup from SoFi there. I'm expecting a lot of Chiefs fans there just because the Chargers don't really have any fans, but should be fun nonetheless. And there you have it. That was my Week 14 wrap up plus my predictions for tonight's game. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Hit me up on Instagram, That Football Topic, no caps, no spaces. Look for this on YouTube, SoundCloud. Hope you enjoyed the podcast and have a good day.